you're building up damage to the mitochondria. Like we were talking about with cyanide. Cyanide directly damages the mitochondria and stops that electron transport chain. And so it stops your mitochondria from being able to generate energy. And it kills you, right? It just stops your mitochondria from generating energy. All your cell tissues die. Flaxseed has 6 milligrams of cyanide per serving. 50 to 300 milligrams of cyanide in a single dose can kill you. My cancer biology professor just said, yeah, these plants have tons and tons and tons of plant toxins that are carcinogenic. And I was talking to Siegfried about this in our interview, and he said, yeah, all those plant toxins, they all damage the mitochondria directly. Tay-Sachs disease and things like that, predispose you to get cancer, but they damage the mitochondria. They interrupt the mitochondria and these plant toxins. So when I was speaking to Professor Thomas Siegfried, I was talking to him about my experience when the reason I stopped eating plants was because I took cancer biology, and my cancer biology professor just said, yeah, these plants have tons and tons and tons of plant toxins that are carcinogenic. And I was talking to Siegfried about this in our interview, and he said, yeah, all those plant toxins, they all damage the mitochondria directly, right? And so that's the thing, you're building up damage to the mitochondria, like we were talking about with cyanide. Cyanide directly damages the mitochondria and stops that electron transport chain, and so it stops your mitochondria from being able to generate energy, and it kills you, right? It just stops your mitochondria from generating energy. All your cell tissues die. So there's no safe amount of cyanide to eat. It's causing damage at a certain level. And we're not seeing this. Like I was talking about flaxseed. Flaxseed has, if I remember correctly, about 6 milligrams per serving, 6 milligrams of cyanide per serving, right? 50 to 300 milligrams, and it's a range because it affects people differently, but 50 to 300 milligrams of cyanide in a single dose can kill you, right? Can kill an adult. Right, so 10 servings of flaxseed could be a lethal dose for a smaller adult.
Wow.
Right. So and people saying that dose makes the poison. It's like, yeah, okay. So what's the dose? They don't say that. Oh, dose makes a poison, therefore it's not a poison. Like that's really the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. You're saying it's a poison. It's just at a certain dose. Great. What's the dose? Yeah. Right. They don't say that. According to the WHO, it's anything. Right. For cyanide. Right. Any amount of cyanide is not healthy. And 50 milligrams can kill you, right? So 10 servings of flaxseed could kill you, right? Might take more for.
So if your missus starts serving you flaxseed with every meal of the day, boys, just.
Well, and the thing is too is that it's going to be harmful long before it's deadly, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that the CDC writes about a lot, that the WHO writes about a lot, and obviously with recent things, not everybody likes the CDC or the WHO.
I was going to say the WHO, I think, have lost all credibility lately, right?
Well, they have, but as a body. But the thing is, they actually still do have useful things on their sites and information, and this stuff goes back way long. I mean, a lot of these things on these plant toxins and cyanide things go back decades, and so they're talking. They talk about have tons of articles and evidence for like people getting low grade cyanide exposure, sublethal exposure to cyanide, causing huge amounts of problems like thyroid dysfunction, goiters, and neurological dysfunction. And when you think about the fact that cassava roots, which when you have cassava chips, you can buy them here in Australia. You get veggie chips that are made out of cassava. That they're high in cyanide, and cassava is the primary calorie source for 750 million people around the tropics. Right, it's a major staple, and this causes direct damage to the mitochondria, and that can damage the mitochondria in your brain as well. This stuff is very, very damaging. And that's just one. That's just one.
Are those 750 million people suffering exorbitant amounts of cancers compared to everyone else? Because if that was cause and effect, I think if their main diet is cassava, then that would be.
Yeah, it's a good question. The thing is that while cyanide interrupts the function of the mitochondria, I don't know how much it actually directly damages it. It just stops the electron transport chain. So it actually just stops the mitochondria from being able to work. It's like throwing a stick in the spokes of your bike as opposed to dismantling the bike. And so it can cause severe damage though. I don't know the difference in the cancer rates, but that's a good question. certainly chronic disease rates are just going up and up and up in the tropics. And it does seem to be that if you have a paucity of protein in your diet, so you're getting under the amount of the lower limit of recommended protein intake, that it is more profound, that this low-grade exposure to cyanide can be better. And what are we talking about? We're talking about people in poor endemic areas in the tropics that probably are pretty low on protein. So, this can definitely affect them. But, we have people here in the West that are just like, oh, yeah, it's all great. Oh, dose makes it poison. I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah.
Right? They wouldn't let us do this if it was poison. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Who's they?
So with the creatine, does that help repair mitochondria if there's issues, or does it just help fuel it, or is it?
Yeah, it helps it work properly. So creatine is part of the cycle of ATP production. It's required for that. You need a lot of that substrate. It also helps reduce inflammation and energy mobilization in the brain and just in the body in general. But creatine is really interesting because they're doing more and more research on this with concussions and traumatic brain injury and those sorts of things. They're finding that high dose creatine directly after concussion can help reduce neuroinflammation and repair, and you can actually recover from a concussion or a TBI much better. And we're talking like super high doses, like 60, you take a day, 5 grams or 5 milligrams?
3 to 6 grams depending. Yeah.
So it's like, it's 60. You take like 60 a day. I think it's like for 5 days.
Can't you only absorb a certain amount? You're not going to absorb that full 60, will you?
Should be able to.
Really?
Yeah.
Then why do they recommend it at such a low amount for?
You don't need it probably. And the thing is that, the idea, first of all, early on, they thought that it was, it would crystallize and get in your body. And if you were dehydrated, it could like crystallize in your kidneys or in your tissue.
Yeah, kidney damage was an issue, but I think that's with everything, isn't it? Like too much of anything can really damage you. So
well, and also, who was getting the damage, right? So I was a teenager when this first started coming out, and people were saying, "Whoa, we got to be careful with this."
Yeah.
And they had some people that sort of died of dehydration and kidney damage and kidney failure and things like that. But who were they? They were like, I think that like most of them were like college wrestlers who were like cutting 30 pounds of weight by putting on 3 trash bags and a gym suit and jumping rope in a sauna and not drinking water for 3 days. And it's just, and they got dehydration. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really surprised.
Is creatine, doesn't that help like water weight? You hold a lot more water weight?
It's from memory, that's only initially, isn't it?
Get puffy?
I don't think long term, from what
it's supposed to. Yeah, I don't know about long term. I mean, it's been a long time since I looked at that side of it. But when I was taking biochemistry, my biochemistry professor was of the opinion that like, look, after a certain threshold of creatine, like you have enough.
Yeah.
You don't need more for electron transport and ATP production. So it's just sort of extra, but it draws in water into the cells. So people say, well, you're getting bigger muscles. He's like, not really, you're just getting waterlogged muscles. Yeah. Mitochondria actually being damaged, but now we know that they're actually not damaged, and it's just completely full of shit. They actually are. And you can see these under electron microscope where the internal membrane, it's called the cristae, is just gutted. It's just gone. And so that's the thing in biology, form equals function. And so if the form is damaged, they won't be able to go through the function. So if it doesn't have that internal membrane, it doesn't have an internal membrane to generate ATP.